Okay, so today I'm going to talk about Google Analytics. It is the most widely used web analytics platform in the world, and it was launched in 2005. So today I will cover these areas. I'll talk about data-driven approach, what is Google Analytics, why we use Google Analytics, how does it work. I'll give you some definitions to key terminology. Then I'll show you a quick demo of how to use Google Analytics in practice. And then I'll give you a 5-step plan how to get it working with React.js. And I'll wrap up with a quick summary. So before going deeper into Google Analytics, it's important to mention a couple of things about data in general, as more and more companies are becoming data-driven. So as you see from this image, that without data, actions are usually only based only on your personal experience and your gut feel. So data-driven approach is the approach when you base your decisions on data rather than your speculation or intuition. And of course, understanding the data can be challenging, but first step is to get all the tools for data tracking set up. So today we're talking about Google Analytics. And Google Analytics is a free web analytics tool offered by Google to help you analyze your website traffic. And Google Analytics helps you to answer some questions as where is the website traffic coming from, who are the users who are coming to your website, and how the users are interacting to your website. And I haven't found the exact number, but it's estimated that around 5 million websites today are using Google Analytics for the website tracking. And there are many benefits of using Google Analytics, but some of them are that it's free, it's easy to use, it's easy to set up. You can customize reports and some of the filters. It has a really cool tool, which is real-time visitor tracking. And it also, you can integrate it easily with other tools and platforms. So how does Google Analytics work? There are 4 components that come together and make Google Analytics work. So first one is data collection, processing, configuration, and reporting. So collection is the first step, is basically when Google collects all the data from different sources. It can be a website, a mobile, or any other device which is connected to the internet. Basically, it uses a tracking code, tracking ID, collects the data, and sends it to Google servers for processing. Processing is the longest step. It can take up to 4 hours. Sometimes it takes even 24 hours. And basically, it's the step where all the raw data it's turned to something useful. Then there's configuration step. Configuration step is where all the filters are applied, and some of the filters are pre-configured by Google, but you can also set up some of the filters. But you have to be very careful, because once you apply the filters and the data is pushed to the database, you can't change it. So you have to be very careful with your filters. And the final step is reporting. Reporting is basically where we start using the data, and yeah, this is the final step, and you see it on Google Analytics. So when talking about Google Analytics, it's important to know its terminology, because it's universal across all businesses. So session is a group of interactions one user takes within a given time, and the default time for Google Analytics is 30 minutes. So if you leave the page and then come back within 30 minutes, it is counted as one session. Then direct traffic is when a user comes to your website using your exact URL, and organic traffic is when a user comes to your website using search engine results, so if they come through Google. Then there are dimensions and metrics. So dimensions are attributes of your data. So it can be, for example, a city, a country, a URL, or for example, a mobile device. And metrics are quantitative measurements, so it's basically percentages and counts. So it can be number of page views, number of sessions, or percentages. And then there are goals and conversions. So goal is an action you want the users to take on your website that you define success. So goal can be, for example, a purchase, a subscription to your newsletter, or a download. And conversion is when one of the goals is met, basically. Benchmarking is comparing how your website's metrics perform against other websites of similar size and category. And bounce rate is the number of people who visit only one page of your website and then leave. But if you have only a single page, the bounce rate will be very high because they leave after visiting one site. But if you have multiple pages, if you have a high bounce rate, it can mean that you have some issues with your website. Yeah. So now I'll show you a quick demo of Google Analytics. Okay. So this account is basically set up for my Kotlix app, which is called Gintare app. And once you create your Google Analytics account and get it working with React, you land on this dashboard and you can see your home view. Basically, it just shows all the main information. So my website had 5 users in total, 23 sessions, and session duration is 28 minutes. It's very long because it's basically only me looking at my website. So yeah, if you scroll down, you can see some. You can see some other information, traffic channels, yeah, like countries, sessions by device, and all that stuff. And also you can see the top pages. Other couple of things I want to show you today is the audience report, the acquisition report, and behavior report. And conversions report is more for marketing and sales purposes, but I'll show you how to use audience. So audience basically tells you who is looking at your website. So audience can tell you demographics, geolocation, behavior, and technology. So you can see users or new users here. But what's interesting is, for example, to see what mobile devices your users use. So if I go to mobile, yeah, I can see that I had basically 4 users using desktop and 8 users mobile. And then if I go to devices, I can see what types of mobiles my users used. So iPhone is me, and this one is probably Cray. No?
Not mine.
Oh, that's strange. I don't know who used that. Maybe someone found my page randomly. Okay, so basically audience is this report which shows a little bit more about who are your users. And then acquisition is how the users come to your website, how they find your website. So basically acquisition is where you can find out a little bit more if they're using direct search, if they're coming through organic search, or they come through referral search. So referral is when they, for example, find your website on someone's blog, on someone else's website. So if you go to all traffic channels, I don't have that many views, so my one only shows direct search. And then you can select source medium, and yeah, it also says direct, but also it has social, so you can check if your visitors are coming through Facebook or Twitter or any other social medium platform. And then behavior is where you can see what are the users doing on the website. So if you go to all pages, basically you can see all of your pages and how many page views and unique page views these pages have, basically. And then it shows some more information, average time on that page, entrances, so how many people entered the website on this URL, then bounce rate, as I explained, how many people just looked at this one web page, and then exit rate and page value is basically if you set some goals. And then this one is behavior flow. It's pretty cool. So you can see what users did, how they interacted with my page. So I can see how many users went from home to these pages, and then from these pages to these pages. So you can see how people navigated on my website. So these are the main reports. Also, customization is where you can save your reports, when you can add your reports. And also here, all users, you can also add some filters. So you can, for example, exclude your office employees, and you can apply these filters here. And also admin is where you find all the admin settings. You also find the tracking info here, which we'll use to implement it to React app. Also, you can manage your users here, so you can invite your colleagues or your friends to look at your Google Analytics. So that's a very quick demo of Google Analytics. If you have any questions, just ask me. And I have a couple of more slides. So next one is Google Analytics with React. So I have identified 5 steps to successfully get Google Analytics working with React app. Yeah, so the first one is to create a Google Analytics account for your app and get the tracking code or tracking ID. Then you need to install the React.js package from GitHub, which is an open source library to get Google Analytics working with React. You install it by typing npm install React.js save to your terminal. Then you have to import it to your app.js file. Then you create a function to initialize the React.js. So basically, this step is the longest, it's the most complicated, and Ricardo's issue website page has more instructions how to do it, but also I can show you my code later if you're interested. And this one, the last one, I don't know why the letters are so big, but basically is the last step is to check it on your local host first, but then deploy it to prod and Heroku and go to React real-time reporting Google Analytics to see it in action. So first thing you will see is one user, which will be you. And to wrap up, it's great to have a lot of data, but it's only useful if you know what to do with your data. And of course, tools are the best at collecting data, but you have to be business smart to get the best insights, and make sure you take action with your data, and you can make very good decisions on that. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening. Do you have any questions?
How much of the type of tools that the Google Analytics use did you have to choose yourself with this? Once you've installed everything,
yeah,
everything that you showed us come with it?
Yeah, it comes with it.
Right,
yeah.
Okay.
So once you install it, basically, yeah, Google Analytics just collects that data and sends it to your collector.
And all those options they give us, anybody can have those options.
Yeah,
so
yeah. But you can, of course, set your filters as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Gil.
Thank you.
So I would like to show something. So if you give me, if I can get 2 minutes of your life, I would like to show you eventually the analytics for Codeiria. I mean, that's pretty much the same thing that Gin is literally shown, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is here we got more data. So for example, we got organic search. You see the things he mentioned before. So we can see how much traffic do we have, how much direct traffic, and how much organic, so how much Google searches and paid searches, as he said, right? And obviously we can check all the details, over time, and all these things, right? Yeah. So the way I actually use Google Analytics, obviously we can do all these things that Gin suggested, right? And that's really good. So just a couple of notes. So first of all, on the, you see, so this is how popular each page is. So for example, let's have a look to some of details here. So what can we see here? For example, let's show the more results. Yeah. So for example, something we can see over the last, I think this is last week by default, if I'm correct. Yeah. So on the last week, so generally speaking, I can see the most popular views are the platform ones. So the platform ones is where you do the training, where you do the coding challenges, and all these things, right? Then we got the portal, which is like the homepage. So then something interesting is that even though in the portal, if you remember, we can follow the different sections of the website, the W's, right? So who, how much, when, where, all these things, right? So pretty much, so the most popular ones are the first one because people start navigating and eventually probably they some of them they give up, right? So they don't scroll to the bottom. But we can get some good analysis. So for example, there is more people interested on booking than on checking how much the bootcamp is, right? So we can analyze these things, right? Yeah, this is pretty powerful actually because you can actually even see, for example, because I have several horizontal slides, so you can see how much people is reaching each slide, right? So for example, how. It looks like not many people is interested in how do we work, right? So they are more interested on how much we charge them than how do we work, right? So this is, I mean, as Gil said, this is just data, right? And data is very powerful, but we need to read, we need to understand, and we need to take actions. Otherwise, this is pointless. And the last thing I would like to do here is to show you, so this is where I spend most of the time actually. So on the homepage, on the audience overview, so the way, my favorite view on Google Analytics is where I show the last what happened over the last 30 days, right? Because last week, data on the last week, it depends what happened the last week, right? If we had a meetup, if we had any event, data, it's hard to compare, right? I like to compare what happened this period of time in regards to the previous period of time. So to me, a week is probably not enough. But if we select a month, to me, this is probably more reliable in terms of how the website is behaving, right? So I can, for example, check how many sessions we got over the last 30 days, and even more interestingly, I can compare it, for example, against the previous month. So essentially, somehow it's like November versus October, roughly, right? Here you go, right? So you can see that in November we got way more activity than in October, right? Because we are now running the bootcamp, but also, if the previous month is not the one we want, we can compare against a previous period of time. So, for example, July and August, because we ran a bootcamp in that period of time. So let's just compare both months, right? Let's see what happened. You see, now this is a bit more accurate. So you can see all these peaks. These are probably because of meetup events, because they happen periodically, right? Every week or every other week. So this you can see that the traffic on the website goes up when we do a meetup.
Also, there's probably weekends.
Yes, correct. Also, we got the weekends, correct, right? So yeah, there is lots of things we can definitely analyze, right? And to me, the important thing is that sessions and users, right? Sessions and users. So you can see that even the number of users, yes, went up a bit. So we got like probably 40-ish new users. The big change here is page views and sessions. Why? Because, for example, now you got training. So we have pretty much the same number of users, just a bit more, but each user is spending probably more time on the platform, which is a good thing, I believe. Yep. And then, of course, last thing is we got real time, right? So the reports are generated at midnight. So in other words, if I want to see all the details of what happened today, I have to wait until midnight. However, a few years ago, and this is relatively recent, Google Analytics introduced the real-time report. So with real-time report, we can see what's going on now on the platform, right? It's good because you can see the location of people, what is that person doing. So for example, so Gin literally just signed in, so she's looking at her stats, how many challenges won, all these things, right? Cool. So yeah, I mean, again, I really like this tool. I think it's very, very powerful. It's for free with quotes because you are giving your data to Google, right? So this is the price you have to pay. But financially speaking, you get it for free. The setup is easy. It's true that with the type of single page app we're building with React, you need a bit of things to deal with, but it's maybe 5 or 6 lines of code. So I think the value you get is really good, right? Any question?
So this is the biggest analytics platform that everyone uses pretty much.
Yeah. I think, well, there are 2 things here. First of all, talking about public platforms, yes, of course. However, lots of big companies, they don't use it because they prefer to trust private solutions. So there are commercial alternatives, you pay for them, and they do all the analytics on site. So you don't give your data to Google.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're creating a new product, this is a simple way to start with, right? Obviously, if your product grows and eventually you are super successful, I'm sure you'll be super happy to migrate and to pay for a custom
Usually,
solution.
even if you use another platform, you still have to go with it because it's free, and then you can compare the data as well.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. Any other question? Nope. Cool. That was it. Thank you for watching.